IBA is a, as we feel, rather unique urban and regional development instrument. It is unique because it's open, it's flexible, so there's no standard. Each IBA has to develop its own format, its own theme, and it's informal. So it's not part of a formal planning structure. At the core of each IBA are different projects. They really bring IBA to life. They can be new buildings, they can be interventions, and I'll talk in a moment about how the projects have changed over the last 100 years and where we are at today. IBA, by definition, have an international dimension, and that's also changed quite a bit. But what's international, for instance, are different themes that apply to cities and regions all over Europe. It's about entering into an exchange, having expert knowledge. And again, I'll mention this in a moment. What's clear is that IBA are long processes. They usually last for about a decade. So it means that it's very much about building a network of stakeholders who initiate the IBA, who support it. And it's also, of course, about political support that needs to be stable. And as we know, oftentimes political terms, they only last for 4 or 5 years. So it's really a tricky task to make sure to have the support that's needed. To make sure to manage this very complex process, usually an IBA company or agency is set up. You'll see this in a moment as well. What's the overall goal of an IBA? In general, it's about developing new and innovative solutions. And I think I had a typo here, I'm sorry. New and innovative solutions. It's about establishing best practice or ideally next practice. But if that's always happens is an open question. I would like to briefly go through the history of IBA just to give you a sense of how it has changed. And we divided IBA into 3 distinct generations. That's our name for it. It's not the official name quite yet. The first generation IBA, which started in 1901, were mainly architectural exhibitions in search of new and modern ways of living and housing. It was a very architectural focus on a building scale. It started in 1901 in the city of Darmstadt, Mathildenhöhe, which was a sort of search for a new holistic design, and it turned out to be a hallmark in Art Nouveau design in Germany, which looked at both the building and the interiors and everything in between. Then in 1927, you might have heard of the Weissenhof Siedlung in Stuttgart during the Bauhaus period or the international style period, where it was very much in search of new forms of building and dwelling, and I'll show a picture in a minute. And then in the post-war period in 1957, in West Berlin, there was the Interbau, which really was a search for, or a sign, a gesture in the competition between systems. By then, Berlin had divided into 2 sections. There was a major building phase going on in East Berlin, and so this was the West Berlin answer to this. And of course, it was about renewal because the city had been damaged. So here you might have seen this. It's the Weissenhof Siedlung in Stuttgart, a building by Le Corbusier. The second generation of IBA, which took place in the 1980s, widened its scope already. It was much about experimental, participatory, and innovative laboratories for urban and regional development. So it's no longer just about the building, but it's looking at the urban context and the issues that need to be addressed. There were two. One of them, and I'll show a picture in a minute, was in West Berlin again, but this time it was not about building an entire new neighborhood from scratch, but about fitting into the existing urban fabric and finding answers to this. And the second one, Emscher Park in the Ruhr, in the industrial Ruhr area, it was about, had a much more regional scope, and it was looking into what can happen in an industrial region that's changing a lot, where the industry is essentially closed. What's sort of the next phase? And here you can just see one image where it was much in West Berlin. It was about sort of adding to the existing building fabric. And now let's go to the current phase, and it should actually say the third generation. I'm sorry, I missed that mistake. Third generation Eba is today's generation. As you can see already, it's a long list of Eba, some of which take place at the same time. Now the focus is much about processes, the appropriation of space. So the scope is widening yet again. And it's also becoming more international, as the first Eba take place outside of Germany in other parts of Europe. I won't go into all of them, but maybe just to give you some highlights. One of them in Saxony, Anhalt, Saxon-Anhalt, was about urban shrinkage. It's a state that has lost a lot of population, jobs, and here the main theme was less is the future. In Hamburg, it was just the opposite. It's a growing city with major housing shortage. Here was the theme was looking at the city in a climate-friendly way, but also tying together a city that, in terms of incomes, is growing apart. Eba Basel is interesting because here three countries, three nations come together, and this Eba is about tying together Switzerland, France, and Germany with various projects. And then you have Parkstadt, which is in the Netherlands. You have Vienna, which is actually sort of continuing in its great legacy of social dwelling. And then you have more planned, even an Eba in Africa. So that's sort of the current generation. Here you find an image of an Eba that deals with the post-mining period. It's brown coal mining and finding new uses for this area in the Lausitz region. And then this is already my last slide. This is again sort of giving an overview of the three generations. And on the right, you see a few things that I would like to point out. For one, I mentioned it already, organizational structures. I guess what's really characteristic about Eba is that it's both top-down and bottom-up. Top-down in the sense that public authorities are involved in Germany, especially the states, but also policymakers, scholars, economic players, etc. But it's extremely important to also have citizens, initiatives, civic organizations involved. And it's about the interplay of both. And as I mentioned before, the management of this very complex process is usually taken over by companies that are founded for this purpose. And one more comment, it's about the quality standards. So quality is really an important task. Of course, it's changed over time, and it's sort of a legacy of quality has emerged that each Eba needs to define for itself. And we, as the federal level, we have started a campaign, a quality campaign, because we want to ensure that Eba has a high level, high standard. It's not a sort of copyrighted standard. It's an open format. Everybody can be Eba, but we want to be sure to enter into a discussion about quality. Also, there's been a network, Eba Meets Eba, to make sure that knowledge and experiences are passed on and exchanged.
Great to see you. Great to see such a diverse crowd in front of the screens. I'm really amazed. So the an international building exhibition comes to life in a perfect way today. International and Thuringia are two worlds apart. No, I don't want to go that far, but we're pretty much a provincial state here, right in the heart of Germany. So we're always happy to be in contact with you guys all over Europe and even the world. I think Jan told everything. Thank you for an overview. And indeed, we are a state agency. We've been created by the Federal Ministry, by the State Ministry of Building and Housing, and in collaboration with the Bauhaus University in Weimar and the Chamber of Architects. And we are here to address Baukultur processes in urban design and architecture that are not in the daily life and work and habit of our small municipal structures here. The average size of the Thuringian rural town is around 5,000 to 10,000 inhabitants. So imagine the administrative power. Often they don't have architects or urban planners to deal with the development of their territories. And so we're trying to help them and make new approaches. I have a little presentation I'll run through. Okay, my name is Bertram Schiffers. Thank you for pronouncing my name perfectly right. I'm the project manager, and we are 5 of them here in our office. So all in all, we are 10 people. We have a budget of 1.2 million euros per year for a time span of 10 years. So we have essentially a little money to play. So we invite workshops and we promote the projects in all kinds of ways, but we are not the maître d'ouvrage, we're not the owner of the projects. We help and train the people doing their projects. So in all circumstances, these projects are sustainable because they are supported and managed and led by the rural towns, communities, and activists in these places. Yes, Jan told you everything. These are the different IBAs we had and that are currently on. IBA short-term, exceptional situations, they tackle local problems. They're more than just architecture, and they must be international, which is quite a channel. So in the end, when we, in the year 2022 or 23, when we can see our portfolio, we will exchange more with you, and maybe today's a good beginning. We created a homepage open/eba.de in English and German, where you can go back to things and questions Jan raised. So we at IBA Thüringen, we created this exhibition online, and you can also borrow or download the panels. Thuringia is right in the heart of Germany. We have no connection with, we have no border with other countries. So we are right in the heart of Germany and Europe anyway, and the world. We're very rural. We have 2.14 million inhabitants, still shrinking. This is our settlement pattern. The largest town is Erfurt, right in the middle. Here we are, 200,000 inhabitants. Weimar, maybe you've heard of the city of Weimar. Then Jena and Gera, these two cities have each 100,000 inhabitants. All the others are smaller. These are the cities with more than 10,000 inhabitants. So that's our main topic, and that's the area that we work in. Starting point is the population decline, of course, the climate change, all kind of transformations, transitions, and changes we live in, globalization. So we live through all these stages and transitions, but at our own speed and in our own structures. Thuringia is beautiful, like all the regions you come from. So we are not an exception. Even more so, as we believe. There is what we call the cultural landscape. So if you go to a village or a rural town, you will find a rock that on the town square with an inscription, 1,000 years old settlement, first settlement in 800 or 900 or in the year 1000 after Jesus Christ. So this is a very long tradition of settlements. Then, of course, we've got our forests. As you see, this is not very sustainable forest, so we're working on this topic too. Then we got the plains. This is agro-industry working on a global scale, using fertilizer from Africa and importing soybeans from South America, raising pigs for bratwurst. So this is maybe not the most sustainable agricultural model too, and we also have projects in this direction. Well, so this is the panorama we're working in, and we have 3 areas of focus. First is our vacant properties. Since we're shrinking, especially in the rural areas, we have many villages and small rural towns. We have a high vacancy rate of 20–30%. If you travel to Thuringia, you will see it will jump in your eyes, like we say here. Then we have the area of collective responsibility. That means that the people get started on the ground. They don't wait for the state to help them deal with their situation, but they go ahead, and we support this. This is the grassroots aspect of Eba. And of course, since we're an architecture exhibition, we're looking at the architectural expression of these new activities, and we call it, with blink in the eye, modern province. Like we're provincial, but we're also looking forward. And the Bauhaus was from Weimar, so there's some traditions in this direction. This is our subway map. No, we have no subways here. These are just different projects, and in the 3 dimensions I just mentioned. We have around 40 projects on the ground in very different sizes. I'll show you in a minute. We started in 2012. Formally, we had a kickoff in 2013. We had our first call for projects in 2014, and then from then on, we started working in our projects. This is where I'm calling from. I work here in the Eiermannbau. This is a former textile factory that has been enlarged into a fire extinguisher factory in the 1930s by then young architect Egon Eiermann, who became a famous architect later in Karlsruhe in West Germany, was famous for his, well, kind of international style. So this is an early work by him right in the province of Thuringia. So here we already see our principles of using the existing and enlarging it into a contemporary use. So we do this again now today. And I'm sitting here in, this is how it started. And this is our concept for the open factory. There's also a homepage you can visit. We had students and young professionals here exploring the space and helping us with the placemaking. This is our huge open space here on the 3rd floor. And yeah, I'm here in the 2nd floor. We have these greenhouses. Each of us has its own cubicle with 6.5 square meters, Corona safe. So here we are. We got a design award for it. And our principle is, how little is enough? What is the least intervention that is suitable for your needs? So we didn't start with insulation and 3-pane glazing, but we found that this house-in-house solution would be the most appropriate to rehabilitate and reuse this this factory for our purposes. Right, and this is another workshop we held, and this is the ground floor. So we built our own furniture and cooking workshop and things like that. Now I moved from our central location to province. We have a network of the Leergutagenten. We activate vacant buildings, and so we create a network of activists that have take a look at these vacant spaces, and we want to support the people. We don't want to, in the first place, renovate the building, but help and look at the people who go there and rehabilitate them. What we need is essentially people. The housings and buildings we have enough. So we don't want to manage a cemetery, but we want to activate people. These are our churches. We have 2,000 of them here in Thuringia. Every village has its church. They're mostly underused, but they're a central location and an important part of the communal life. So we're looking at uses, and we try to open these churches for new uses to make them a center of their places again. And here we invited an artist to make a new organ in this chapel, and this created a huge activities by the local municipality and was a starting point. So there's still concerts there, and so people galvanize and come around this small intervention. And this is a bed in the church. So this was also something very exciting and new. How can you sleep with God in a church? And it became a huge Airbnb hit, and all the pilgrims that walk along our Rennsteig trail, they stopped by and spent the night here in St. Michaelis in Neustadt am Rennsteig. Became very popular and led to huge discussions within the parish, among the parishioners, but they're happy with it, and it creates new communication around the church. Just one example, and there's more to go. These are our vacant Sommerfrische, summer vacation architecture, all vacant, and it's like in the fairy tale, waiting for the prince to kiss places. But we as IBA, we open up these places, we create opportunities for people to meet, and our important first step is just to open up these places and for people to come in and share their interests. And this is a self-help building by young architects in a village in south of Thuringia. They built this space within their village for housing and meeting. Then we have a model region, the Schwarzautal. We're exploring new ways of managing and living within these communities. This is a former castle, still a castle that went through different time periods and has become an icon for transformation and change. Then this is a new way of experiencing the landscape and making it accessible for new users and groups. This is a local hub. This is the railway station that we transformed with a cooperative into there's a shop with regional products, and already the station design and the landscape design tells about the region you're in. This is the shop. This is Gera, town center, also in transformation. And we had an Europan design workshop competition and brought new ideas. We have a lot of temporary activities. This was a flash mob. Pouring rain was perfect with the umbrellas. Wir means we. These are the people. These are the citizens. Citizens-led design was their initiative to restart the development process for the site. This is the master plan. Then we have refugees, of course, here in Thuringia. It's an issue with our rural regions and people that are not always so open-minded and open to the world. And so there is, yeah, we have a very interesting project also building spaces for activities by the local people together with the migrants here in this area. So we again temporary buildings and activities to bring the people together and have a starting point for new development. And then this is the last project I'll show is transformation of the landscape. And we have this vast agricultural, agro-industrial landscape, and with new interventions and workshops, we're working on new models of climate adaptation and new forms of agriculture, agroforests, and multi-use countries landscape, and again, yes, and touristic aspects. And this is our timber prototype. We're looking how we get regional production cycles, how we use Thuringian timber in a new way. This is here in Apolda, our timber prototype. And Eba does what actually doesn't work. Our projects are, they're impossible, all of them, but anyhow, it works. And this is the protagonist of the Eba Emscher Park who said this word, and it's still very right. And a main topic around our project is always cooperation. People really reaching their limits with their administrational and institutional, and even going beyond them to make these projects happen.